tools. We want to give you some things that you can take back with you. Use them, in your interactions tomorrow, take them back to your store, your next meeting, whatever it might be. This is one of those tools, and we'll be providing all of these exercises and these slides to you. But this helps give you some idea, first of all, of kind of your work style. From a generational standpoint, and these are all very large stereotypes, right, across different generations that we pull from the Pew Research Foundation. But we look at these generalizations, we find out what category you would fit into based on these work styles. Is there anybody here who their dominant number is a boomer? Okay? So nobody has the highest number in column C. Column C? Okay, you're not. Okay, yeah, you're not. You're not. But no column C. Now how about Xer? How many here dominant is Xer? So B is your highest number. Okay? Now how many of you A? The millennials, highest number. Okay? Great. Is there anybody here who's relatively equal across all three? Okay? Is there anybody here who's completely one category? Or maybe just one off from having 100% one generation? What we're going to find is that across most of these surveys, every time that we do this assessment, whether it be with Xers, millennials, boomers, people span generations. They have different individual characteristics and preferences that align with these categories. What's important to them, what money means to them. This is different for different people. Okay? One of the challenges that I'm going to give you, one of the tools, is to take this back to your workroom. Take this back to your store. Have everybody in your store do this. It takes 5 minutes, and all of a sudden you can start to get some idea of what's important to them, what's driving them. When we start to talk about expectations of millennials, but expectations of employees in general, we have to understand, what does that paycheck mean to them? Right? What is driving them? What are they looking for in leadership? What are they looking for in their job? Because once we can understand some of these things, we can better understand how to interact, how to coach, how to mentor, how to develop. So I'm not going to go into all of these in detail, but there's a couple of them that I think are important, right? This idea of lead characteristic is something that's pretty important. For the boomers, we talk about the careers and that overall career attitude. For the Xers, we talk about independence and autonomy, that lone wolf, which comes through a lot, that title. But then we talk about the millennial generation. It's about their network. It's about their team, the individuals they work with, they work around, who they're communicating to. And a lot of that is driven by the idea of technology. So this idea of network, are we truly creating some type of organization, some type of store that's a team environment? It's not a group of lone wolves. This is important when we get to the idea of compensation and motivation, and we start talking about sales contests, and we start talking about implementing competition within our store among people, across people in our store. Sometimes we force this into the store and we create these factions. And we actually take something that's very important to the millennial generation, being their network, and we start to drive it out of them by the things that we put into place. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, making sure that we keep that top of mind for them. We talk about the idea, again, I'm not going to go into all of them, but what I think is pretty interesting is the idea of authority. When we think about the millennial generation, the way they view organizations is dramatically different than the way that the Xers or the boomers view an organization. For a boomer, right, the people that you would talk to would be one level above, one level below, that was it. The authority came from the person above you. Everybody above that was obviously had authority over you, but didn't communicate it to you. It came down through the system. As an Xer, the millennial, the organization flattened a little bit. And I might be willing to go 1 or 2 levels up the organization or 1 or 2 levels down, this communication and this authority. For the millennials, they view the organization as being flat. They will talk to anybody. They will walk up to your CEO and just have a conversation and give their opinion. You know what, I think we can do a few things differently for Verizon. Really? Tell me about it. You've been in the store for how long? I've been here a month. I've got some really good ideas. Right? Their view of the organization. Right? If you think about, this is what's fascinating. If you go back there, your undergraduate degrees in management, and you talk about that organizational chart and where people live on that organizational chart, right? Depending on what generation you are, if you're a boomer, you look one up, one down. If you're an Xer, you might go a little farther. For these millennials, it doesn't work like this. These millennials view it as this. Everybody's just kind of across this organization in this horizontal fashion. So this way that the conversations they're willing to have, the communications they're willing to engage in are much different than generations before them. What's that mean? Well, there's an element of introducing this idea of hierarchy and what it means, right? But there's also a way to embrace that and get the millennials to start sharing their ideas, that creativity that we talked about, and starting to leverage some of that. We look at a couple more of these before I turn